Hi there. Welcome to Art School Live. I'm Kathleen Hudson, and I'm your guest host this week while Eric is hosting Plein Live. Today, my guest is Crista Pisano. Crista, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh,
Excited to
of
be here.
course. Yes, it's super exciting to welcome Krista onto the show. I've known Krista for years. We met, I think, at Planner event on Solomon's Island back in 2017. May have
In
been,
Bucks
was it that one?
County? I
Bucks
think Bucks
County,
County.
2017. Okay. I know
Yep,
it was a while back.
yep,
But yeah, we've overlapped at a bunch of different events. So we've
yep.
gotten to paint nocturnes together and yeah, had lots of adventures out in the field.
That's
So
what I was gonna say. Lots of adventures, lots of fun, lots of stories.
that is true. So yeah, Krista, what are you going to teach us today?
So today we are gonna rework an older plein air painting and try to give it some new life.
Excellent. Well, that sounds
Yeah.
great. So without further ado, we will get the show started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
So as you can see, I'm not Eric Rhodes. My name is Kathleen Hudson, and I am your guest host this week. So Crista Pisano is going to teach us how to bring a plein air painting back to life. She is going to take it away now, and we'll get to see how she does. She does these beautiful smaller works. That's sort of her signature. Her signature thing is that she works on a very small scale, but creates these gems. And so we'll get to follow along as she takes a work that she has sanded over and brings it back to life. All right, Krista, take it away.
All right. Can we see everything okay? It's really hard to get in. But that's why we're kind of on an angle here. It's hard to get in so close.
I think
Can
so.
you
If you
see
want to angle it
everything?
down and see the palette a little bit more, that way people can see what you're mixing, then that would be great. Yeah. Oh,
How
that
about
looks
that?
good.
Is that
Yes,
good? Yeah, I
really good.
apologize. You're really kind of painting under this camera to get in so close. Um,
That's right.
this is a painting I did in Maine. Um, I guess I don't know what year this was. This a couple of years ago, maybe 21, 22. Maybe my first attempt at painting rocks in this type of subject matter, which is scary because you have water going, rock. Um, and now the longer you study things such as like what Brienne was, I caught a little bit of Brienne yesterday. What she was talking about is, the more you observe, the more you can just work from memory, which is what she was doing yesterday. um,
Hmm.
so now that I painted more, more coastal rock and waves and that sort of thing, I'm seeing issues with this that I could make better. There's this repetitive form here, it kind of repeats here. This is really busy in here, too busy in here for me. What I do like is this shape in here. Um, I probably was really focused on that shape,
Hmm.
and it's probably really, knowing myself, that's probably pretty accurate. And I think I recorded the motion that we have going on, definitely. Um, Even if I don't like how some of this is painted right now, I definitely was recording. There was water coming in this way, and maybe hitting waves that were rocks that were even, maybe back here even more. Um, so what I did as an exercise that I don't normally do is, but I trying to figure out what to do with this, is I photocopied um, the painting. Now, I don't know how to work my photocopier. I tried to like mess with get the values the same. And I thought I was going down 50%, and really I was going into like printing 50. So now we have all of these. So what I did was, the plan was to kind of draw over it and see what I could do to change it. So or give ideas of what to do. So I don't know if you could see both. I painted in gouache. This one actually has Sharpie on here. So I like these shapes. I accentuated these shapes and, took out some of that rock. Here was another one I played with, maybe, taking that whole one rock out, here and adding two here, give it a different kind of movement. And then here was another idea. Now, how I rework paintings like this time of year, especially, I'm going to sand this down a little bit. Now, this is a very used sanding block. I actually like using these, but now when they get worn down like this, but they're, now I'm getting this foamy stuff in the painting. So I got these new ones and they're a little too rough for me, but you can I learned this from my manicurist. He does this with his nail files, his new nail files. He, get some, get a little of the tooth off of there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand down. I like this shape here, so I'm not going to really touch much here, but I'm going to sand down. I hope this isn't too loud either. Just kind of in a circular motion, and you just kind of want to soften things. Can you hear me over the sanding?
Yes.
Okay. And then once, the more you sand this, it kind of winds up dictating what you might want to do with the painting. I'm not going to do this too much because I could do this all day, but it winds up just softening everything, taking it down a little bit, just so you get an idea. Some of this water is coming through up here now. I'm getting different tones of water up here. I'd like to really sand this part down, but we're just gonna keep it moving here. But you can see it's a little softer. I think you could see.
Yes.
Some of this kind of blended in a little more. There's a little more transparency in the waves over here. They're not as harsh and busy as they were before. I felt like they were harsh and busy, if that makes sense. But it kind of just, it's not so in your face as it was before. So, all right. Get a brush here. And again, I'm going to just, there's no, if I could spend weeks on repainting or playing with, this is like such a fun exercise to do. Also, reworking paintings. You have a freedom of, trying to remember where you were and what the air was like. I remember who I was painting with and who I was talking to, and it all kinds of comes back to you that day.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you paint outside long enough, you get that romanticism about it.
That's
which
right.
we don't always talk about so much, but you just kind of let it dictate itself to you.
We have questions about what your substrate is. Are you painting on panels?
So these are gesso boards, and my framer Ray. I can't do anything without him. He cuts these for me, and he makes this painting actually came out of this frame. It'll probably go back in here. The size is 3 by 6 3/8. But
I love it.
he cuts this panel, and it's got some stamps on there. And then he'll make a frame. I frame this black board in here, and then I Velcro these in. so I can't, he does, without him, I don't know what I do. But he, and the gesso board, I don't know, I don't paint on canvas so much, on the scale, especially because it, I like to be able to see the, I like to be able to really get at it with a knife like this, and on the small scale, the weave gets really distracting for me.
Mhm.
It kind of takes away, you could see, you could get enough texture on these boards. I think people are usually afraid of them because they're too slick. But I will oil, even though they come primed, I will oil prime them.
Mhm.
And then I tone them the color of my palette here, which is, this is wood. And, when I'm done, painting, and I clean everything up, it comes out this color, and then I tone my panels that color too. So whatever I'm mixing up here is really the same as what's up here. I mean, you could kind of see it coming through here.
Oh yeah.
Like where can you, am I the wrong
Yeah,
way?
definitely.
Can you see it in the waves up there?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
so it's all, it's all harmonious on, what I'm doing here is the same as what I'm doing up here. It just kind of takes, you're not fighting with another element here. And the gesso board is also nice because it's, very portable. You don't have to worry about getting, I could kind of stack them in a bag and take off with them. My handbag, they often go into.
Oh
um,
man, that's always so remarkable to me to think about painting on that scale, because if anything, I think I often paint too big outside since I paint at these events and you kind of have to make a statement piece to
uh,
stand out. So I find myself trying to look at the max sizes allowed. But
I know. And I walk in with my, as they sometimes they call them, their pocketbook of panels.
I love it.
But if you've seen my vehicle, that means that I just have more room for shoes and dresses and all the other stuff I want to bring with me. I have a 2-door Jeep Wrangler. There ain't much room. But so just because they're small, I mean, I'll bring, to some of the competitions, I'll bring, 40 panels with me and 40 frames. And I don't paint these very quickly. That they don't, I think the misconception is, oh, oh, how many did you paint today? And I'm like, one, because
Yes.
they take just as long as larger paintings. Actually, I think when I, like, a lot of the competitions and stuff, you have to do like a 6x8 now, or 6x6 or something like that. And those go a lot quicker for me, actually.
Hmm.
It's just, I just paint simpler, and is that a word? Simpler? Um,
Hmm.
and but it's just as hard. Everything's hard. you know? Um, so another thing I like to do is, I think I like to, um, the other nice thing about working on panels and stuff is you can really design with your knife, um, which I really like to do with the water. You know, painting the ocean is hard. It's
Yes.
intimidating. And I think, like, once you get there, but then, like, once you get over the fact that, well, nothing's going to stop moving, um, it's, unless you're taking pictures, which pictures don't do anything justice, um, with when the ocean is concerned. you know, how many times I stood there, waited for the perfect wave and took the picture, and it just is not what I thought it would be. Um,
Yes.
you know, it there's a meditative quality about painting the ocean, which once I feel like you can get there once you stop being scared of painting it and just kind of go with the motion of it. God, I feel like I'm being very I usually don't talk romantically about painting. And I feel like that's what I'm doing today. But it is. It's you know, to be out there and, you know, hear the ocean and just take it all in. It's really a fun exercise, and it's frustrating at first, but just let it go, you know,
Mhm.
do this, you know, oh, that you know, move around the water and don't be afraid to mess it up. And I found that that's when I really started learning how to paint the ocean.
Letting go of fear. Well, and
Yeah.
the thing too, the great thing about painting the ocean plein air is that you're witnessing the water's movement and it's constantly in motion. You know, there's
Hmm.
always you're always at some stage of a wave hitting the
Yeah.
shoreline, and you can paint that movement and use your brushstrokes to amplify it in a way that a camera won't capture. That's why when I'm painting in the studio, I actually paint from videos. Like I'll get a video and just put it
Yeah.
on loop, and so that way I'm still painting the motion instead of trying to. If you see a painting where you see little individual water droplets, it
Hmm.
always, to me, I mean, I've seen some that are artfully done, but it always reads as a little bit unrealistic to me because our eyes don't capture individual water droplets. Like
Right.
we see motion.
Yeah.
And so you can tell when something was done from a photo when you see those little individual flecks of water.
Yeah.
Um, and that's, yeah, that's not what we see on site.
Well, you know, I broke out my mostly because I was on like TikTok or something, and somebody, you know, had this cute little pink camera, you know, and put stickers all over it. And they're like, oh, this is from Y2K. I'm like, I have one of those. I'm like, I'm like, everybody wants it. Like, I have the cool thing. So I went and broke that thing out and started taking some pictures with it. And because everything is so high contrast now, it's kind of nice to is that I don't even know if that's the right way to explain it. Everything is, do we say pixelated anymore? Or am I aging
Sure.
myself? Is that what we said? I'll go back to my old camera. The old camera, you know, everything was about the pixels. And um, it's just not, the quality isn't this as high res as it is now. And
Mhm.
it kind of takes out all the stuff you don't need
Yeah.
to paint from. Like some of these beautiful marsh um, uh, pictures I've gotten, you know, really soft where, you know, the iPhone will just pick up every little blade of grass and every little, you know, and it makes it really confusing to paint from.
Oh,
Um,
it does. Amy Erickson actually adjusts her phone settings. You can change the focal length on, when you're taking pictures with a smartphone,
mm,
and so it makes everything blurry. And she
oh,
does that on purpose so that she can paint more impressionistically from photos.
I think that's really helpful. I
Mhm.
mean, I sometimes will paint from a picture from, well, if I'm using a photo, um, I usually print it, and then I put it, you know, I'll clip it at least 3 feet away from me. Now, I
Mhm.
need new glasses right now, so I don't know how that's gonna go.
Great way
It
of
might
keeping
be a
things
good,
blurry.
I know, it's a good way, you know, maybe I'll paint better. I don't know. But it really kind of takes out all the detail, you know, and
Mhm.
it's makes it a little, I mean, is it ever easy, but um easier to paint from without paying attention to all the stuff you don't need.
Mhm. Oh, we have a question about what size brush you're using.
So this is a um, Filbert number 0 bristle. I only use bristle brushes because I just like how it you know, I like the texture. Again, I
Mhm.
think when you're painting on, I mean, I don't think about the scale that I'm painting on. I think about, you know, it's not like, oh, I paint small and that's not, I got to do these things to paint small. It's all about drawing. It's all about making sure your scale is right. And um, uh, I lost my train of thought. Um, oh,
Oh,
and how to make it, what was that? What were you going to say?
oh, I was just you you landed on
I,
where you were.
yeah.
um, about the brush sizes and why you use
Oh,
hog bristle instead of synthetic.
yeah. The more texture, I feel like, you know, the more texture I could get into a small image, the more sophisticated it becomes. And it's not about, oh, it's painted small. It becomes a just a painting. You know, it's
Y-
not about the painting being small. It's about the quality of the paint and the you know, I want you to forget that it's small, you know,
Yes.
and just pay attention to all the other things that are in here that make it, you know, just a painting. Um,
We also have some questions about the colors on your palette. You have a really loaded palette for
I
having a
do.
smaller Pashad. I like it.
Well, the you know, this looks like a lot of paint. This paint will last me at least 3, 4 weeks. You know, I just kind of close this thing up. Um, this setup here is Frankenstein's from things I've made and things I've bought. It's not my plein air um, setup. This is my living room studio setup because when I can't stand how messy my regular studio is in the next room, I just kind of come in here and, you know, look out the window. And I live on the Hudson, and it's kind of like a nice calm place. But um, so these color, I learned off the prismatic palette, which I'm not even going to explain because I don't explain it well and I don't really use that system anymore, but this is kind of a modified version of the prismatic palette. Um, these, you know, can you see the, I don't know how much of my palette you can see. These colors in here are um, from a set called Renaissance, I think Renaissance Touch of Color.
Mhm,
And these here are from another set um, called Color and Light.
mhm.
Um, and then these are my primaries that I, you know, all my cadmiums, and then I've added things here and there in between. I also have, I don't know if you could see this. Um, I don't know if you could see these darks on the side here. Um, maybe I can bend you down real quick. Um,
Oh yeah, wow.
those are, don't ask me what colors they are because I'm not really sure. I've been experimenting with them.
Mhm.
I paint a lot of nocturnes. I've been working on some larger nocturnes, larger by like, I don't know, I guess the size, I guess normal size. I
And
don't
you're
know what
talking
size
like
it
8 by
is.
10, 9 by
8 by
12?
10, or like like I don't know how to ship them kind of size.
Oh, no.
um, but I've been interested in trying to see how dark I can really get um, with the nocturnes, and I've just been buying these, um, you know, darker colors and um, playing with I'm interested in pigments and stuff, so I'll read the pigments and see like, oh, they, you know, this one kind of, you know, I'm already using this kind of blue, but this is, you know, it's modified, you know, and I'm just playing with these darks, but they work really good for these rocks. I noticed plein air. I wanted to make these darker. Um, I spend a week in Maine. This year it was 2 weeks in Maine every year. I have
Mhm.
a show at one of my galleries in Maine with our friend Neil Hughes, and we get to go up there and paint for a week or two. And I really get time to like spend on those rocks and look at them and go out there in all different weather. And, they're dark,
Hmm.
when they're wet like that, they're dark. And sometimes even when I'm painting them, I'm saying, God, this is, am I making these too dark? And then I realize, no, it's accurate to what I'm seeing. I think we're just
Hmm.
not used to painting a mass of darkness. Well, I mean, I guess I kind of am because I paint at night, but when and rocks are different colors too. Some, you'll go some places and they'll be, just lighter or whatever. But when you look at Homer and how dark his rocks are, I go, oh, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to just
Hmm.
mass things in like this. Now, because I sanded, like, I don't know if I could pull this up here. I don't know how close you can see. You see like this rock here,
Oh yeah, it's got some texture.
some texture, because I sanded it down a little bit. And if I just kind of drag that dark over it a little bit, like all these things happen, which are kind of cool. It's a fun part about, it sanding it down dictates some, I could do all those sketches or, gouache studies or whatever, but really when you sand it down, it kind of dictates what it wants to do,
Hmm.
which is really exciting, and it makes you be free.
Well, yeah, I guess the other benefit of that is if you do some work on a section and you don't like the way it's developing, you can just wipe that part down and try
Hmm.
again. You've got the painting underneath, so.
Yeah, I've sanded things down a couple times before I got it to where I wanted it, to be. And all these little magical things kind of, all these kind of magical things kind of happen sometimes that you don't expect and that you can't recreate. Like there's nothing worse than like, oh, I really liked that one you sold. I'd like to commission you for that. And I'm like, there's no remaking that. Like there's, that was sanded down and that was like out of my hands. Like it just happened. And I don't know if I could redo that. A lot of times with nocturnes that I've redone, reworked, that happens. Because the nocturnes I work on are all surface, really. It's all about the surface. I don't know, is this looking better or not?
Yeah, I like
Or
the idea of breaking up that rock a little bit because sometimes when you have a rock that has a symmetrical shape,
yeah.
yeah, it's even if it's there in nature, I always, that's the kind of thing I always break up because the last thing I want is to have a bunch of little hamburger buns
Yeah. Or
out in the
potatoes.
water,
I
right?
call them potatoes.
Yeah, that works too.
Potatoes.
And
Yeah.
there are
I think,
places where you actually see it, but you have to, even when you see it, you have to fudge it, make it
yeah,
different.
I know. I mean, if you've ever gone to Nova Scotia,
Hmm.
um, there's a plainer in Nova Scotia, and there's these rock formations, because the tides go in and out in 𝗣𝗲𝗶𝗴 so quickly, and they've created these beautiful rock formations. But like, I remember I brought one back from that event, to the gallery, to um, Sylvan Gallery in Maine, and I walked in and she was like, well, this is different, because nobody's ever seen that kind of, rock formation. It was the flower pot. Were you there? Did you do 𝗣𝗲𝗶𝗴?
I've never done that one.
Oh, I don't know why I felt like you painted that flower pot thing. It's just this weird rock with these like sticks sticking out of the top, and it literally looks like a flower pot. But if you never saw it, you wouldn't believe it, that it existed. So sometimes you do have to kind of, not paint exactly what you see.
That's right. Make it up.
Yeah.
Which for me was a revelation because when I first started painting, the goal for me was accuracy. And
Hmm.
it wasn't until, farther along than I would have liked in hindsight that I realized that I was the art director. I got to
Yeah.
do things creatively, and yeah, if it's not there in real life, that's okay. You can make it up.
Yeah, well, I mean, painting, again, I think painting is really scary, whether you're painting the ocean or whatever. I think when you get into a you know, subject matter like the ocean, where it doesn't stop moving, um, it is scary. But when you stop letting the painting control you, and that happens. I mean, I'll be at a competition, I'm like, why am I struggling with this thing? And then, I kind of take a break and I'm like, this thing is completely controlling me. I need to take back the control and, like, mess things up and fix, there's things that I've done where I'm like, I really like how I painted that tree, but guess what? It doesn't work. And bye-bye. Like, it's just gotta go. And, like, there's a power in that,
Mhm.
being able to kind of fix things and mess them up. And, it's always fun when you make it, when it's worth it too, you know.
Mhm. Yes. I've got a question about what to do if the narrative of the original painting changes when you're reworking it.
um God, that's an interesting question.
Right? I know. I
Yeah.
sometimes it does change, but you have to. The thing is, if you want to change the mood of a painting, um, you have to do it with intention, and that's what I tell
Yeah.
students is like you can totally change something, but understand what you're doing and why when you make those decisions instead of just kind of like flailing.
Yeah,
You want
yeah,
to have an idea.
yeah. And like, if we were talking about this painting, I think it was the other before I started reworking this, I think it was fine. It
Mhm.
was okay, but it lacked movement. I mean, it had some movement, but it didn't have, this kind of texture I'm trying to put in here. Now, is this more successful? I don't know, but it definitely has a different feeling to it, and the narrative is different. It
Mhm.
feels louder. Um, it feels more powerful than, when I started with than the original one. I don't know. Is the original one still up?
Yeah, it's in the if folks look at the bottom left corner of the screen, we've got a little image of it. And I think, I mean, to my eyes, what I'm seeing the main difference is you've amplified the wave, you've increased the contrast, so the light in the water um is, there's more foam visible in the water, you darken the rocks in the foreground. So it reads a little bit more like one of Winslow Homer's seascapes, with the more dramatic wave and the strong
I'll
contrast.
take that.
Yeah.
You call me Winslow Homer all day. I won't believe you, but I'll take it. um, yeah, I've really, he's never been really on my radar of artists. I really wanted to, um, you know, you go to the museum, oh yeah, nice Winslow Homer is okay. But then I started painting the sea, and I really was like, oh, I get it now, and it sometimes that happens, there's things that you're not interested in, and then you start looking for teachers, in books and things, how did they paint that? And you know, it,
Mhm.
it's definitely been an influence of um, trying to paint the ocean better than I have been.
Definitely. Well, and he painted what he saw, and it's, everybody has a unique way of seeing the world around them.
Hmm.
But you can see, especially if you paint in some of the same locations with similar atmosphere, you can totally see that he was painting impressionistically, but with a degree of accuracy too. He was capturing something true about the way the light glows on water, and the contrast where the water is coming up against darker wet rock. And yeah, he loved the drama of it all.
Yeah,
So I can
what I've
relate.
yeah, what I've gotten from him is definitely like this type of, like, he really, gets like this type of, I know that when I probably saw that's what that looked like, and that's really, as far as the narrative goes, if we want to talk about changing the narrative, I probably picked this on site because of this one little rock, because I liked that. And that's usually how I pick what I want to paint, is it's something so mundane, like, just the way the shapes move or whatever. And so I know that I probably painted that pretty accurately. I won't give myself much more, but I'll know that that's what I feel like that actually was there. And that's what I feel with his work. Like, you would know that rock, everything else seems, no matter how loose the ocean is or whatever, but like, I feel like you would definitely know where he stood and where he was painting, because the rock, unless there's a hurricane and it all changes. Which happens. I mean,
It
you go back to
does.
the same places in Maine, and then all of a sudden, like, there's a storm, and it's like, what? It's all gone. It's amazing how the ocean can move the rocks too. This is a little bit of one of those dark colors I showed you before. These are these reds. And I really don't quite know how to use them yet, but I've been trying.
Yeah, well, it's fun to play around. I love playing around with color, especially when you've got a subject like rocks and water where it's a lot of gray naturally, and you can choose to amplify color in a few places to make things interesting. And yeah, and then if something doesn't work, you can always knock it right back. So it's
Yeah.
low stakes as
Yeah.
far as being playful goes.
Yeah, it's fun to these colors here, especially like these, these are all cadmium yellows, the oranges, the reds, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, manganese, and black. But these are like really a security blanket for me, because when I started painting, I was like 12 and my palette was just this. And it's been that my whole life. And like, I dip into them, to change colors or whatever, but I don't think I've used them the whole time. But even if I don't use them, they're like my security blanket. Like, I cannot not have them. I usually stay in this, no matter what I paint, this really sort of tonal area of the palette. And then I could change things from, the value, temperature, with the primaries up here. But yeah, when I the problem is sticking with, if you learn a palette, don't be afraid to get out of that palette. The palette I learned kept me captive for so long that it really took a while for me to just get rid of, and not forget it, but just, expand on it. So it's great to learn, specific palettes, but it's fun to play. And there's a lot of things that, cool things that could happen when even if you're just painting next to one of your friends, you could be like, hey, can I try that color?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you're like me, you just walk up and kind of be like, I'm going to take some of that. Just because I
always love showing
bit,
people Indian yellow, so I'm like walking around with my tube of Indian yellow, putting it on people's palettes. gotta spread the joy.
I'm a fan of Indian yellow, but I only really use it at night.
Yeah. Oh, it's great for mixing darks because the cadmiums have such a high opacity that they tint things. I'm sure that's why you use Indian yellow at night, because it's fully transparent, so you can push something towards yellow without the value changing.
Well, I really just use it for lights, like I should try it. Actually, that's a really good idea. See, that's maybe I will try that in my darks, because it is transparent. But I mean, I usually use, and I'm never satisfied with the color. You know, I like to paint lights on water, light reflections on water. And I mean, the hardest colors for me to try to get is like the red of a traffic light at night. It's horrendous to try to get that. I can't get it. Or, you know, the intensity of it, you could get close, but it's hard to get. I have a hard time getting it. Or the greens, you know, like green, you know, lights on a buoy or something, or green traffic light. Also very hard for me to get that color. I've been
It's challenging because titanium white is such a cool white, and so whenever you mix it with a red or a green, you end up with, you know, if it's a red, you end up with a cool pink, and so you have to push the warmth in those light values by adding yellow. But it's, you know, it's back and forth, because if you go too hard on the yellow, then all of a sudden you've got something that looks a little hokey. So,
Well, that's why, you know,
yeah.
when I paint nocturne, I don't use white at all. I use these as my whites. So like if I want a red, you know, a red light or something, I'll take, I don't know, I have a whole other crazy little section I put out for my nocturnes for the lights. And I'll take like, you know, some kind of bright red, and I'll mix it with, you know, one of these colors. So it's not, you know, it's not titanium white, or not, you know, this is, you know, it's not exactly like what you were just explaining. You know, it's really hard to get. Nighttime's hard to paint.
It is.
But it's
Well,
my
the fun
favorite.
part too is dealing with easel lights. Even the best outdoor lighting setups still are imperfect. So you always have the experience of coming back inside and looking at the
Yeah.
painting the next morning and being like, "Oh, that's not quite what I thought I was getting."
Well, no, and you know what? There's some good, you know, lights out there, but you know, the problem is my plein air setup is a cigar box. Okay, so it's you know, this big. So all those lights, you know, the ones that you can, I can't remember what it's called, but the ones you could change the beautiful, you know, nice big heavy ones, they'll topple
Yes.
my gear down.
Oh yeah.
So like I'm the one that's always out there painting, you know, painting nocturne, and I really, you know, I'm just using lights, you know, like those lights that they use in orchestras, you know, the
Yes.
in the pit. I have a cool one and a dark and a warm one, and but I keep saying, like, for all the nocturne painting I do, which is probably, I'd say during the competitions especially, is probably at least 80% of what I paint. I should have some really good lights. But the ones I use, I mean, you just get used to them, you know?
Well, and
You
you
get,
remember what the colors on your palette do, and so even
yeah,
if it doesn't look totally right to your eyes, if you know, remember what those color mixes are, that 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 helps out. I think having the pre-mixed grays on your palette probably helps a lot too. I do that when I'm painting nocturnes, because if I have a mid-gray to reference, then I kind of know if I might be going off the rails.
yeah. You know, my problem is I was, you know, playing with these, again, those darks that I mentioned before, without you know, really trying them on a smaller scale.
Mhm,
And I was getting too dark, you know,
mhm.
which was, I was trying to push the darks, but then they were getting, in my opinion, too dark. So that was, you know, that was a learning thing too. You know, the reason I got them was to push them on a larger scale, um, darks on a larger scale, you know, more like a Rothko, or, you know, something like that. And, you know, it didn't quite work on it works in small doses on this scale, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Oh, we had a
It's
question too about what, like your approach to pricing work, because, you know, given that a lot of artists price by size, obviously, if you tend to paint on a smaller scale, that's I'm sure that's something that comes up. But I imagine it's similar to, anybody pricing work at in a gallery or at an event.
yeah, I think that if you looked at, you know, when you go to, when you live the life like I live, where I'm going from one competition to another, and
Hmm.
you're with a bunch of different artists. It might look on a whole like, oh, my paintings are cheap, but they're cheap or cheaper than other. Cheap is such a bad word. Cheaper than anybody else's, but they're not. They're sometimes mine are um, priced higher than larger paintings 5 times the size. It's
Hmm.
that pricing is when you've been doing this for so long, you pricing just, I don't know how to explain it.
Hmm.
Is
Well,
there a
yeah, it's
way?
kind of. I think that you basically have experience at events and at galleries enough that you know what what is at the top range of what can sell, and you want to price your work so that someone can, that someone will buy it, but not the first person who walks in.
Yeah,
You want it to be, yeah, at the upper limit of what people are willing to pay for your work, and that's just being being strategic.
yeah,
um and I think for smaller work, one thing I've noticed a lot, especially as I've done more events in, markets like Southern California, where folks have more disposable income than wall space, is that they're often looking for smaller work. And for them, the
mm,
price point doesn't matter as much as, the question of, do they have room for it in their home?
yeah,
So there's not, like it's not necessarily um, a negative thing to have smaller work on the wall. In some places, it can really actually be a positive.
yeah.
Um,
I think, I don't, I'm just in such a different, you know, this is what I do. So this is these are the prices. It's not like, oh, every once in a while I'll paint one this size. Oh, what do I price it at?
right.
It's just, it's, you know, it's like any other artist. I don't think of the paintings as being small. Like I
Right.
said before, like to me, it's just a painting. Um, I didn't
Right. And
choose to
that's, I
paint
think,
this
where
size.
the market can be confusing, is because for like events have created mini painting days or something
Yeah,
as a special thing, as though those are a different category, when that's not like
yeah,
they're not a different, like, you don't take a different approach to a smaller painting. And that's, not just you, but I don't take a different approach. I tend to spend more time on if I do a 6x8, I spend more time on that than I might spend on 11x14 if I'm
oh
putting
yeah.
more detail into it.
Yeah, well,
um
that's what it's kind of funny to hear, some of my friends or whatever complain. They're like, it's not easy to paint that small. I'm like, yeah, well, just remember that
Yep.
when you start saying, oh, how many did you paint? It's it's I don't think of, at this, again, this, I didn't choose to paint small. It chose me. I was working
Hmm.
for a company for 15 years making German Victorian Christmas ornaments. And it just, I
Wow.
got used to working on this. Oh yeah, we
I
were,
love that origin story. That's pretty great.
yeah, it's it was a great company to work for. And I mean, I had to, everything just was, my hands got used to making things small. And then the paintings just kept getting smaller.
Hmm.
And also, like, I was working part-time there in order to be able to do what, um, I wanted to, pursue with painting and doing competitions. And it was good because it was seasonal. I mean, I was there all year round, but, I knew I can't take off in December. You know what I mean? December, there's no taking off, but there were no competitions. So, you know, I would enter all these things too, and I only had time to paint. Which totally contradicts what I said about, you know, oh yeah, they take just as long as painting larger paintings. But back then, when I was hustling and
Hmm.
working a job and trying to do, you know, every library show I could do, or every anything I was invited to, or any auction or anything, and I couldn't afford frames, I was gold leafing, you know, little frames I was picking up places, and or metal leafing, not gold leafing. But you know, it just they were small, and it just kind of, you know, again, it chose me. So I don't think of, oh, I'm going to paint small paintings today, you know.
Hmm.
I actually get jealous, you know, watching everyone use their, you know, hand, their whole arm, you know, painting sometimes, and I'm like, ah, I've been painting miniature boats for, you know, 3 hours now, and, you know, cutting in masts and everything. And I'm like, all I want to do is like have big hand motions and arm motions and paint some, um, you know, nothing, something not a little less tedious, you know.
Hmm.
But, you know, this is a great, you know, it's a convenient size when you don't, you know, if you're on vacation with your family, and you know, if you have kids and you're on vacation with your family or whatever, and you might only have like a little bit of an afternoon to paint or something, you know, or you could bring in a little, you know, set up to the beach or whatever, you know, this is a nice size to work on. And I only use linseed, I haven't used any since I've um started here, but I only use linseed oil
Hmm.
um if I need to. I'm just using straight paint. Um, and I don't wash my brushes through use. I'll have, I don't know if I could show. Again, I'm so tight in here, but you know, here are all my brushes.
Oh
um,
yeah, wow.
they're all the same, the bristle filbert, um,
So you
bristle
got
long
size
ones, or
0.
size 0. But you know, let's see if I can find one here that's got, um, you know, this one here. Where's the camera? Here. Um, can you see? This is so awkward.
You can move
You
it up
can't
a
see
little
it.
bit. Not
Here.
yet. Oh, there
Okay.
you go. Yeah.
Can you see the little hairs here that are, oh, we can do it on my nail. Um, can you see the little hairs that are
Maybe if
split
you move it to
there?
the center, it'll refocus the camera lens. It's a little on the bottom right, so move kind of up and
Oh,
left, almost. Yeah, but
no.
there's some.
Okay. Um, you could, they're very, yeah, I can't. I'm also painting it sideways, so, um, but they get frayed, and you can, you know, load some, you know, paint on here pretty. Can you
Mhm.
see that? I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah, a little
with,
bit.
you know, you could, you know, use your tools to make the texture, and you know, it takes half the work out of having to mess with it. You could go back with, or have to fuss with it so much, and then you could kind of go back with your knife and soften things. And I also use I don't know if I have one here. um yeah, I'll use my famous mascara brushes.
Oh,
You know, they got this little metal tip in here. You could, or you can also soften things, you know, if you want to. They're a great tool for, you know, plus this stuff's like $10 you know, $12 sometimes for one tube. I'm not throwing out these brushes. Um,
that's hilarious. Do you
you know,
like clean them off with dish
no,
soap or something first?
no, oh no, I just keep wiping them. I wonder if this one's metal. Yeah. You can, if you get the ones that are like metal base, you know, you can
Hmm.
bend them. Um, yeah, they're you know, they're a fun way to, especially if a lot of times if I'm doing like a big painting of like a field or something, and I get too fussy with the grass, I could just kind of go in and, you know, soften it without without like using a brush and making it mushy, you know. But that's a nice, you could go to a dollar store, if you want to try it. I just wipe them down, and you know what, if the mascara gets in a little bit, it's fine. You'll often find glitter in my paintings because Mom didn't let me play with glitter, and that explains a lot about me now if you ever meet me. I like everything glittery and sparkly. Hence also why I liked working in that Christmas shop. I got to play with glitter every day. But I don't, back to using just linseed oil. I use a different brush for every color. So I don't wash my brushes throughout, you know, a painting session. You know, there's no wiping or anything. But also what that does is it makes all this stay wetter longer. You know, like I don't have anything in there drying it out or evaporating it. You know, it's just oil paint. And some of these from these sets are such nice quality paints that they stay wet for a long time. And I feel like that kind of helps the rest of them, you know, like, you know, because they're so loaded with oil, you know, that it, you know, they all stay nice in here. So that's why I can rework, you know, use all this you could kind of just pull the skin off some of these grays here, dry quicker. You just kind of pull the skin off and it's, you know, they're fine, but nothing here goes to waste. And then like, once all this gets, you know, you can't use it anymore, I'll scrape it all down and I one by one, and I kind of like pull the skin off it and put it in a pile, and then I mix it, and then it becomes my tone. So, you know, I'd like to think that I have my act together enough to tube it, but instead I put it in old makeup jars and with a little saran wrap over it. And then when I, you know, prime a bunch of after I oil prime these, you know, I'll tone them. And then if I don't have time to oil prime, I will, you know, because the gesso boards come, any kind of gesso boards you get, you know, they all come primed.
Oh, and I apologize. I totally lost track of time.
Oh my God.
We're like
4 o'clock.
Way past time. Been having a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks to everybody for watching. Oh, and so everyone go to Crista's website. Her website is CristaPisano.com, and you can follow her on Instagram at Crista Pisano Art, and there are underscores. You can see that if you go back and replay it, you can see that at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, give her a follow. She did a fantastic job showing us how to bring a plein air painting back to life. Thank you so much, Crista. That was
welcome.
Great.
Thanks. It was so much fun. I felt like
Sorry
we
for the
were
quick
hanging
ending.
out
Oh my
and like our regular paint outs, you know. So yeah, thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
Excellent. Well, let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, please. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Crista. Everybody go follow her. Excellent. Well, sorry again for going over time. I was so engrossed in watching Krista's process that I was not watching the clock. So I apologize for that. So yes, everyone, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's at Art School Live on YouTube, and follow Eric Rhodes on Instagram. You can also go to my website. That's KathleenBHudson.com. You can follow me on Instagram, and it's at Kathleen B. Hudson. And I do have some videos available from PaintTube TV, and so you can check those out if you'd like to. Thank you all so much for joining today, and keep dropping questions in the chat. We'll follow up on those. And I really appreciate it. Go over and sign up for Planner Live if you haven't yet. That starts tomorrow, and it's going to be action-packed, and you will learn so much in the course of a few days. I'll see you all tomorrow, everyone. Thank you.